As if the news in the housing market could not get worse, today we see another multi-year high, highest interest rate in decades as we push 8% mortgage rates for excellent credit. And all that is coming on the heels of some of the major industry leaders I'm going to showcase for you today are clearly panicking. And this, my friends, is not something we even saw last fall when the market started cruising towards the bottom in time for 2023 to get a nice spring lift. And will we see this same situation play out? All we can see for now is that the marketplace is absolutely shuddering, and we're seeing the major players in the marketplace breaking headlines as they're panicking in public. I'm going to show you the news. Let's dive into the data right now. Now we start with the news of the day. Redfin just published this today that homeowners must now earn $115,000 to afford the typical US home. This is $40,000 more than the average household can even make. Now, folks, listen to this. This is the incredible part. We obviously know month after month, I think within the most recent 30-day cycle, going back to September now, August, every single month we see more headlines saying this is a record month for how much it costs to own a house in the US. Oh, this is a new record. It's even more expensive than last month. Now, all of that being said, we're seeing the interest rates driving up the cost of a house, okay? At the same time, we're not seeing prices year over year adjusting to a great degree, which means if you're borrowing about the same amount of money this year as you were last year, and if your interest rate is 1% to 2% higher for 30 years of time, you're gonna spend a whole lot more on your monthly payment. Now, you can update me in the comments, but I believe, folks, this is somewhere around a 9 to 12 year high, okay? We haven't seen this high of a mortgage rate in a very, very long time, 7.92%, and we're pushing 8%. A lot of times, last 12 months, people were saying there's no way mortgage rates are gonna go that high. And now all of a sudden you have a gridlocked housing market. You have no inventory, according to the pundits. They're on TV every single day. Inventory is at a record low, and yes, it is. I think you can look anywhere in the marketplace. Inventory is seeing itself settling, meaning sellers are on the opposite end of buyers. Buyers are on one end saying, I can't get in. I got to make $120,000 a year. I got to have a doctor's license to actually earn enough to own a home. Most people can't. On the opposite end, you have all these sellers locked in because they got 2, 3, 4% interest rates on the opposite side, and they're looking around saying there's nowhere to go and I can't pay percent interest themselves. So even the people that are in the home that might move up in a home can't do it, aren't doing it. The market is at total gridlock. As a result, you've got completely, chaos ensues. Earlier this year, I point out that in a few short months coming into this year, this was when the market started to come back into a motion in 2023, beginning of this year. 75, 100,000 realtors at that time, big numbers of agents leaving the marketplace. Now look at this particular headline. This is the most recent information from HousingWire talking about the leadership of the Mortgage Bankers Association. Now, the MBA, the Mortgage Bankers Association, they run regular reporting on the industry of how many people are applying for a mortgage. It's super important for the data they provide because they inform us on how much demand there is for housing. Now, just like we've seen over the past 2 or 3 months, rolling updates of people saying it's unaffordable and we're out, we can't afford it, we don't make enough money, and buyers by and large are being forced into rental situations. At the same time, you've got the mortgage bankers who push out the data saying it is 20 plus years since we've seen this few amount of people qualifying for a mortgage right now. Okay, I don't have that data in front, but it's 20 plus years. The most recent data reports that the MBA has been putting out saying people that are looking to buy and pre-qualify are history. Now, I said all that to say this, folks. As you look at the marketplace, you would say to yourselves, well, Jared, there's nothing for sale. When everybody feels like there's low inventory, the obvious reaction and what people would tend to glean to is the fact that nothing for sale means sellers can demand whatever price they want. And I got to tell you, that is not the case. Sellers demanding whatever price they want are in a complete stalemate with the market. As I showed you a second ago, if you look back at this Redfin report, the cost of owning a home is up 15%, but the price to own a home has not come down to accommodate the cost of higher price. So here's where the issue becomes interesting for all of us on the sidelines watching this is, number one, it is unanimously determined that it is no longer a good time to buy a house. Okay, buyers have made a group decision that they're out the marketplace. They have a lot of sellers in the marketplace who have this visionary idea of what their house is worth, and they leave the price of their home at that number ongoing. They just decide, I'm gonna put my house on the market. The value from the public's perspective isn't there. They have a number on there, and they're frustrated with their agent, and their agent isn't telling them the truth. And the house is wildly overpriced in today's terms because 15% more cost. Price has not adjusted to come down to afford the buyer the savings of the 15%, which is where the buyers are really staring down the sellers that are actually in the market needing to sell. Now, sellers that are with it are pulling those prices down. The sellers that are in la la land are sitting there hoping and praying that there's some bounce back and there's some imaginary intrinsic value found for their particular home. Because you know what? Their house is worth this number, dang it. And I'm going to sit here and wait until it does because the market is fine and it never goes down and it will never crash. So as long as I'm holding out and staring down the buyer, even if the day on market time on Zillow says my house has been on the market for 8 months or a year, don't worry, that doesn't look bad to the buyers. That doesn't spell out to the world that I'm wildly overpriced. The market is full of this nonsense, okay? There's a bunch of sellers that aren't selling because they won't reduce their price. There's a bunch of buyers that would love to buy. The affordability isn't there. And what's going to break the gridlock? That is the ultimate decision. Now, let me get back to something I need to show you, okay? Because this is the funny thing. This is a market leader and his ideas, okay? So the CEO, Bob Broeksmit, and forgive me if I've said your name wrong, Bob, but he comes out to his yearly update to all the mortgage industry, all the people lending money, who they are starving right now. Every loan officer I know is starving for business. There's very little. Buyers aren't applying. Refinances are a faint memory. And Bob comes out to his audience this year and he gives them some red meat to chew on to make sure they feel great about Bob. Because Bob says,
normally I talk about the remarkable work you all did over the previous year.
The lenders.
Then I look at what we did.
The Association of Mortgage Bankers.
On your behalf, the battles we fought and the victories we achieved. I close by reviewing what lies ahead and the policies we're shaping and the progress we hope to make. But my tone is positive and upbeat, but not this year. I am not upbeat. Frankly, I am upset.
Bob isn't upbeat. Bob's upset. You know what he's saying? He goes further to the mortgage industry and says,
you are fighting for survival. And while we're fighting for you, Washington, D.C. is fighting against you. At a time you and your customers need relief. You're at risk of being hit with some extreme overregulation at a time when you desperately need stability. Your own government is sowing seeds of profound instability.
He goes on to cite several different things. Now, there's some things I agree with Bob on. There's some things I don't, okay? He's furious, no doubt, because the Fed has been taking steps to raise the cost of borrowing, which means fewer people borrow, okay? There's probably some furiousness in the mortgage industry because last year around September, the Federal Reserve, who used to pump energy into low mortgage rates by buying mortgage-backed securities, the Federal Reserve buying and tinkering with a market, keeping it artificially cheaper, keeping it artificially hotter, deflating interest rates, driving up price where there isn't actual real market demand. It's market demand created by imaginary electronic money from the Federal Reserve, okay? Creating demand to lower rates, not real market rates, created demand and lowered rates that then fueled a humongous appreciation chart that absolutely inflated prices 70 to 90% across America in a matter of 3 years' time. Many places, okay? Not every place grew past 40 or 50%, but even a 40, 50% appreciation rate in 24 months is insanity, folks. And now the chickens are supposedly going to be coming home to roost because Jerome Powell is now tightening down the Fed. He's doing all these things. And now, surprise. Okay, so we all seen this, right? In the last time the market went run up crazy, I remember when 2008-9, before that time, okay, the previous 3 to 4 years, you would go to a real estate or a mortgage lending event in the mid 2000s, and everybody was rolling up in Hummers and Escalade trucks on 24-inch rims and all of these. I saw people rolling up in Lamborghinis that were in the real estate industry, okay? And now we most likely had all of that in part this time again, okay? And now, just like what happened last time, everybody sold their high-end luxury cars and ended up in drug dealer cars. No offense to drug dealers or Cadillac DeVilles, but people were buying classic luxury cars that weren't Lamborghinis. You know, people were rolling up in Caddies and things that they could afford in cash. You know, older BMWs that had 40,000 miles on them or 60,000. This is what happens. There's a turnover of events. And oftentimes we don't like what happens when we strip away the easy money and everything has to be balanced back out. And ultimately, if nobody's been paying attention, the market is frozen because of that diametric issue I just showed you. One end is buyer can't afford, seller has cheap money on their housing. That breaks when there's more economic woe, forces people that didn't buy the house in a way that they could afford it in hard times, okay? So even though these people have 3-4% interest rates, all we need, hard times, people bought to the top of their income ratio, meaning how much money I can afford in payment. They maxed it out, even though they were 3% mortgages. They borrowed at the top. Those people get into trouble. They stop paying second mortgages and home equity lines. That forces sales, folks. When you force sales, prices are coming down. Again, I'm not going to get into the dynamic of what's going to happen next because there's some unknowns as to how this will fork out into the road of 2024. Is it going to go into complete recession worse? Or is unemployment going to stay record low, stay hot, wages stay record high? That's the fork in the road. I'm going to end with this. The bottom line is we're going one of two routes into 2024. The spring season is either going to be met with the gasoline fuel on the fire because of wages and employment. That's all it is, folks. The only reason we recovered out of last fall, which was spiraling down, was 2023 was still bottoming out unemployment. Was still going down from COVID spike. People were getting more and more wages, more and more income growth into this year, spurred on buying. It caught us out of the cycle that hit us through the fall of last year. And markets all across the country this time last year were panicked and housing was in trouble. People forgot all about it because there was party again beginning of 2023. We have yet to see, but it's interesting the tone and nature of the leaders of our industry and the things they're saying about. So I wanted to bring it to you. By the way, I'm going to be back on this channel. I'm going to be back on firing off some of the most accurate, detailed information on the Florida real estate market. And if you want an update, particularly in your area, please drop a comment below on what areas of Florida you want a deep dive in terms of an update on what the market is doing there. And as always, thanks so much for watching the channel. Smash the like button if you listen this far. Drop me a comment no matter what it is. Put a smiley face. I don't care. The biggest way you can thank me is drop a comment below. We'll see you on the next one.